then people who don't want to die of cancer or don't want their loved ones to die of cancer, those people end up on the side of the boss and not on the side of the worker. But there's two different ways the radiology story can go with AI. And so if today there was like an AI salesman going up to the CEO's office and going, here's the deal. You've got 10 radiologists on the strength. They cost you $300,000 each. That's a $3 million annual wage bill. Each of them does 100 x-rays every day. And I want you to spend an extra $1 million. And I'm going to sell you some software that's going to sit next to the radiologist and a couple of times a day, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, why don't you take another look at that one? You might have missed something. Well, I'd be all for it as someone who's just gone through radiology. But no one is invested in Sam Altman on the premise that his sales force is going to ask CEOs to spend more. Right? This is all based on the idea that that salesman goes up to the CEO's office and says, you've got 10 radiologists that cost you $3 million a year, fire 9 of them. Split the $2.7 million with my boss, Sam Altman. Take the remaining guy and make him what Dan Davies calls the accountability sink. He marks the AI's homework at a superhuman pace that is going to guarantee that he's going to miss things for grueling hours. And when someone dies, we blame that guy because his signature is at the bottom of every one of those x-rays. And I think that if you, as someone who's worried about getting cancer, understands that, then you understand that while there is a way in which automation can assist a worker who's in charge of the adoption of the automation, that it requires the worker be in charge. And right now the radiologists are in charge. I've talked about this in public and radiologists get in touch with me and they're like, you need to understand, we're in such short supply. That's how it works now. We get to decide. But the point of AI is to erode that worker power.
Either one,
so
I don't care.
Fire
you can
9
pick.
of you and make the remaining one
do
be the work.
Sounds
so
good.
like we as the public,
it's a lot
we as
easier
the
because
workers, we need to form a plan.
Oh yeah, that makes more sense.
Are the
I'd rather
bosses who
not
want
do
to
that
fire
side just because it's so
workers
much harder because I
and the
gotta like,
automation
Yeah,
pushmen
definitely.
who want to
That works
lower the
better.
quality of the outputs in order to split the wage bill of those workers.
Coming up, how long can AI's staggering dominance sustain itself on a foundation of hot air, bullying, and tricky math? This is On the Media.
On the Media is supported by Progressive Insurance. HomeQuote Explorer helps homeowners compare
Hello,
rates
Lexi.
and coverages that choose the
How are
right home
you?
insurance for them from a network of companies in one place. Learn more at Progressive.com.
We're just listening to this expert on AI. It was pretty good.
If you don't have an up-to-date estate plan, you're not alone. Having one means you're planning ahead for your family, your community, and
Hello.
what matters most to you.
Check out The Church of Judas in my new book, The Little Book of Judas by Andrew Harris, to replace all patriarchy, Christianity, war, and Trumpism. If you're ready to replace all patriarchy, Christianity, war, and Trumpism, check out my new book, The Little Book of Judas. Yeah, I remember you. It's nice to see you again. Thanks for being here.
And see how planning ahead can help shape Colorado's future.
Your support is the public power behind Colorado Public Radio. Thank you, Ann Brenner and David Caprera.
Well, that was pretty good.
Circle gift sustains trusted journalism and
Hello, everyone.
Independent, public, and made stronger by your generosity.
Well, that was pretty good. Very good advice for diffusing the AI threat, which I've always thought was the threat of the billionaires
This is On the Media.
misapplying AI. Here we go.
We're back with friend of the show, Cory Doctorow, author of the new book, The Reverse Centaur's Guide to Life After AI, in which he argues that hype is what's keeping the whole
Tekka?
industry afloat.
Well, someone's giving them the money for the money furnace. Thus far, it's not you or me. Like, you add up all the subscriptions, it's $50 billion a year. So where's the rest of the other $950 billion coming from? It's coming from Silicon Valley billionaires, financiers, Emiratis, lots of people who've got, I think, so much capital that they constitute a danger to themselves and others.
How much of the efforts
really clever.
of these global behemoths do you think is behind generating hype?
Well, like I say, there is an existential crisis that arrives in a growth company when it runs out of room to grow. Just to give you a sense of just like how deadly it is for the market to decide that you can't grow anymore. January 2022, Facebook announced that they had slightly fewer than predicted US signups in the previous quarter. There's a $240 billion flash crash because the market was like, Facebook stopped growing. That means they're going to start shrinking. That means that they're overvalued because they're not a growth stock anymore. They're a mature stock. And of course, who's got the most Facebook in their stock portfolio? It's Mark Zuckerberg, right? It's the people making the decisions. One of the interesting things about what might happen with AI after the crash is that we're going to have all these open source models that the companies have released and that are being refined in China and elsewhere. And these turn out to be like a lot more powerful than we thought. We can take these models that currently run kind of slowly on older hardware, and we can make them a lot more efficient. And how efficient turns out to be pretty impressive. So there's a company called DeepSeek.
We've talked about that on the show. There was this near hysteria when they seemed to be almost as good as everything else, but then it turned out they weren't as great at everything.
Or at least
look at what happened to NVIDIA's stock price, right? So this company, which had $6 million in capital, made improvements to an open source model that had been released by Meta, and it ran so well on much, much cheaper chips, not next year's NVIDIA chips, but 3-year-old chips from NVIDIA competitors, that the market took $600 billion off of NVIDIA shares, off of NVIDIA's capitalization in a day. They've mostly recovered from that. But you know Keynes's idea, the beauty contest?
Tell me.
Stock speculation isn't picking the most beautiful contestant. Stock speculation is picking the contestant the other judges will think is most beautiful. Right?
Yes.
Because they're going to come in and buy the shares. When the market loses confidence in something you're holding on to, even if you think the business's fundamentals are sound, if they can't continue to function once their share price crashes, then you'd better get out as soon as you think the other people are going to get out. I don't think the AI companies have the product they say they have, but even if they have a real product, they won't be able to hang in there long enough to bring it to market and find a stable footing if the market loses confidence in their narrative.
Money furnaces.
They cook the narrative in so many ways.
The biggest money furnaces in history.
Is like a bespoke metric.
It can crash capitalism itself.
Retrospectively, so they're like, we call them
if
Texas
you break
marks.
it right.
You shoot the shotgun into the barn and you draw the target around the place where the pellets went into.
You have some examples of that in the book. Can you give me the one that's easiest to explain?
Yeah, so Anthropic just announced that they're profitable, but not according to the generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, which is like, we're profitable, but the math is so cool you wouldn't understand it. Like, if you look at us using normal math, we're not profitable at all, right? And then the same week they were like, oh, and by the way, we've got this new security tool called Mythos, but it's so dangerous. If we let you see it, you turn to stone. Oh, also, we're thinking about our IPO now, but that has nothing to do with the fact that we have a profitability that can't be computed using normal mathematics and a tool that's so cool you're not allowed to use it. I just think that as a civilization, it would be nice if we had enough object permanence to win a game of peekaboo.
So some workers have been permanently replaced by AI, like customer service representatives, and that's clearly not to help me. Not at all. No. I mean, it just sucks.
There's a great story about the customer service stuff that is especially poignant for me as a Canadian, which is the Air Canada story. They're our flagship carrier. A lot of the times, if there's routes, if you want to fly them, it's just Air Canada. So, you know, this is Lily Tomlin as the AT&T operator on Saturday Night Live.
We don't care. We don't have to. We're the phone company.
We're the national flagship airline, right? So they've had bad customer service for a long time, particularly since the very useless competition regulators in Canada let them buy most of their competitors. One of the things they did was outsource that customer service to...
But now they're not even human.
Yeah. So the story with Air Canada is this guy, his grandmother dies. And he needs a bereavement fare. And, you know, most of us don't have to buy bereavement fares, thankfully, and we don't know how it works. So he does what any of us would do. He goes and asks the customer service chat on the Air Canada website, how do I get a bereavement fare? And they had fired a bunch of their workers, contractors, and replaced them with chatbots. And the chatbot said, I'm sure, that's a great question, and you're smart to ask it. Also, here's how you get your bereavement fare. Just fly full fare, send us the death certificate afterwards. We'll give you the difference. So he does this. And then he hears back from Air Canada and they're like, chatbot was wrong. We're really sorry, but we're not giving you the refund. You had to submit the death certificate before you flew. So he went through 10 weeks of customer service hell, escalating this through the whole Air Canada bureaucracy, hits like the point where they're like, we just can't help you. And then he goes to the ombudsman in British Columbia and like it's weeks more. And finally, like, here is $700 Canadian. They were wrong. Well, how many people didn't go that far? Maybe because they were owed $50 for luggage or $100 for being stuck on the tarmac or whatever. They just give up. Like, I wouldn't give up. I'm a bloody-minded weirdo. But
I would give up.
Again, like how many angry customers can you service per dollar goes up when you use AI to do this. You can make that number really high if you don't care whether those people are happy. And why would we care if those people were happy if you're the flagship carrier and a significant number of routes, you're the only one flying it?
So you're saying AI can replace all these workers because there are no consequences?
No, this is where we have to tease the things apart. We have to say, yeah, the AI can do my job because my boss wants to screw you with worse outputs. The AI can do my job as a radiologist because my boss doesn't care if you die of cancer. AI can do my job as a customer service rep because my boss doesn't care if you spend an extra $700 on a bereavement fare that you never get back. You know, there is no glory in making the things that we rely on more expensive. All of the things being equal, I'd like everything that I rely on to cost less and be better, and for my neighbors to also have a good life. And I think those are compatible. When workers drive automation, they tend to make things better. And sometimes that means you don't need to replace them as often, or, you know, there are lots of ways that you can have a better life. But the AI
really
pitch is, we will make things better, and we're going to do it at the expense of your neighbors' jobs and maybe your job. And if you understand that they're not going to make things better, they're going to make things worse, then you don't become the accidental lobbyist for increased AI spending.
You said the job of a good AI critic is to help pop the bubble as quickly as possible. Talk about the bubble and how you pop it.
Money furnace. Call them money furnaces. Let people know it's about to blow up.
Not a bubble. Let's just like run the numbers again. $1 trillion in expenditure this year, over $1.4 trillion total, $50 billion revenue. 7 companies, the Magnificent Seven, that are 35% of the S&P 500. 6 of them lose money on AI, and the 7th one makes money from the other 6.
These all companies funding Trump's ballroom.
They're all passing around the same $100 billion IOU really fast and pretending it's in all of their bank accounts at once. And the assets depreciate really quickly. So they amortize those data centers and the GPUs in them over 5 years. They actually replace them every 2 to 3 years. And like the replacements, pretty intense.
And these things are data centers, old versions of AI?
GPUs, data centers, well, and the AI that runs on them, right? Mm-hmm. They're saying that these things are going to last about 5 years. And the reason that matters is if you spend $1 trillion on stuff that's only going to last 5 years, then in 5 years, you're going to need another $1 trillion if you want to stay in business, right? At least. So NVIDIA is actually doing some pretty amazing things with new generations of chips every year. And one of the ways they're getting such performance out of these chips every year is they're throwing away one of the principles that normally constrains new technology manufacturers, which is backwards compatibility. So these new chips, they've like really different heat dissipation, networking, power consumption, and often you can't put them in the same building. You need to basically like tear the data center down to the foundation slab and build another one for the next generation of chips. Wow. These are not durable assets in this model.
So it's going to blow up all their resources. It's going to crash the stock market.
Their assets depreciating every 3 years. They're spending $1 trillion a year. They're making
AI is going to
$50
teach
billion
them
a
a lesson
year.
they wouldn't listen to
And
just
there
an
is
intelligent
this
person
bedrock
telling them
finance
just
that is
stop being so
called
greedy.
Stein's law that says that anything that can't go on forever eventually stops. Of course, there's another one. This is from John Kenneth Galbraith, which is that the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. So let's remember here, the point of a bubble is insiders lie about an investment opportunity. They hype it up with other insiders. They unload it on everyday savers. And in America, everyday savers are people who used to have employer pensions and now have market pensions. They just don't want to starve to death or be homeless in their old age. And they have to guess about the market correctly. Otherwise, that's what happens to them. They give all their money to swindlers, and then the whole thing blows up. Every bubble is very, very evil. So when 1/3 of the stock market is vaporized and takes the savings of everyday people with it, when the S&P 500 loses 1/3 of its value overnight, it's going to make 2008 look like a walk in the park. And if what we do when the bubble bursts is what we've done with all the other financial emergencies, except for a little around the edges of COVID,
bail out the perpetrators,
bail out the perps and do austerity, we are going to drive people into the arms of fascists and authoritarians. That's pretty well understood in political science. You know, I'm
probably
living
their
in the
goal.
UK now. There was just this big study here that showed that if your doctor's office shuts down because of
boisterous and
austerity,
vibrant socialism,
remember the
take
medical
over
care
instead.
here is public, right? Your likelihood of voting for the fascist party, the Reform Party, goes way up because you become a patsy for someone showing up and going, the reason you can't get the necessaries of life anymore is an undeserving outsider is getting what is your due. This is the roots of fascism. This is what scares me. I'm not worried about AI making me into paper clips. I'm worried about a bubble bursting and us doing more austerity and giving rise to
Worry
even
about the
more
fascism.
powerful authoritarian
The
and
fascists who were
fascist
making it in the
movements.
first place.
Coming up,
As I was trying to
more
tell my
from
friend the other day, the problem's not
proliferous
the AI,
mind of
it's the
Cory
billionaires. It's the
Doctorow,
evil
who says
goals
we
of the evil
shouldn't
billionaires.
succumb to the idea that world domination by AI is a foregone conclusion.
Well, that
This
sounds
is
good.
On the media.
I don't want to let it end.
Coors is beer, and yet for a few decades, its main product was targeted to babies. When Prohibition came to Colorado on New Year's Day 1916, Coors was forced to pour its entire stock of beer into Clear Creek, 17,000 gallons in all. Unable to brew, Coors could close down, or it could adapt. Well, they had lots of malted barley, and their brewing equipment could easily be converted to producing malted milk powder. So they did, and advertised their malted milk as the best food for infants, next to mother's milk. Malted milk powder was a staple in soda shops and bakeries and in candy. Adolph Coors Jr. struck a deal to be the main supplier to the Mars Candy Company, a move that saved the brewery in time for the end of Prohibition in '33. Coors went back to brewing beer in Golden, but continued to make malted milk powder well into the 50s.
A Colorado 150 postcard, supported by Denver Zoo Conservation Alliance.
Hi, I'm Manoush Zamarodi, and our world is changing so fast. On the TED Radio Hour, we invite innovators, researchers, and activists to unpack those changes with us.
Just about all companies are becoming technology companies or technology-enabled companies.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour from NPR every week for conversations that will deepen your understanding of our changing world.
That's next on CPR News and KRCC.
This is On the Media. I'm Brooke Gladstone. Now, the final part of my discussion with Cory Doctorow about his exhilarating book, The Reverse Centaur's Guide to Life After AI, wherein he dissects the prevailing notion that AI's impending domination of everything is inexorable, inescapable, and therefore inevitable.
Yeah, look, Margaret Thatcher, her favorite saying was, there is no alternative. They actually called her Tina Thatcher.
Yes.
There is no alternative. And really, this is like an imagination extinguishing motto, right? What she means is not there is no alternative to what I've delivered. It's don't you dare try and think of an alternative. And look, I'm a science fiction writer. My job is to come up with 6 alternatives before breakfast. And tech CEOs always practice vulgar Thatcherism. Mark Zuckerberg wants you to think that there's no way you can talk to your friends without him listening in. Tim Cook wants you to think there's no way you can have a reliable phone unless he controls which software you install and takes 30 cents out of every dollar you spend. Google wants you to think that there's no way for you to search the web unless they're spying on you, right? Like, these are separable activities. There's no reason to do both.
You call them cheap bullies tricks.
Yeah, look, it's the stop punching yourself trick, right? Well, if you don't want to be spied on, why are you searching the internet? If you don't want Mark Zuckerberg listening in, why do you have friends? And this is just as true about AI. Because
This guy's awesome. Does he have a book out here?
Pretty cool. Here's basically the AI story from a computer science perspective. 10 years ago, some researchers took existing machine learning techniques and tried a minor variation on them. And normally, if you vary a technique by a little, you get a small change in the output. Better. And so this was a piece of low-hanging fruit, and it turned out it was an fruit orchard. They could do the same thing over and over again, and the output got better and better. Now, eventually, it tapered off. We're now in an era of diminishing returns. But this is like, it's very exciting to see machine learning improving. And you know, machine learning, we can talk about whether that's a good term or a bad term, but, you know, making statistical inferences is useful. Knowing about what happened and trying to guess from knowing what happened, what's going to happen next, lets us have weather predictions and cancer research and the International Panel on Climate Change. Statistical prediction is good, and we're getting better at it. And so I could easily imagine a world in which we didn't have the bubble, in which maybe like the IPCC and Sandia National Labs took $100 billion for a moonshot supercomputer that did really good work refining the way we calculate climate emergency predictions, and that spun out a bunch of interesting little chatbots and image generators and other things. Then people made plugins out of them. My first word processor was a program that came in a magazine I bought at the corner store and typed into my Apple II Plus when I was 10 years old. And it's been 45 years. My word processors have gotten a whole bunch of new features. And now my word processor is a feature that generates plausible word salad. And like most of those features, it's not one I have much use for, and I think a lot of people, when they use it, it makes their writing worse. But, you know, I've never had a word processor feature that was so exciting. I was like, well, I guess we should bet the world economy on it. And also, maybe this word processor feature is so good, all the writers should be put in a wood chipper. But we just have AI as a normal technology. And the idea that we couldn't have AI without that, it's a dumb Jedi mind trick. It's there is no alternative.
Can you give me some examples of workers who've resisted being reverse centaurs? I mean, what's their leverage?
There's one group of workers who succeeded really well, and it's the Hollywood writers. And
I was
their
bringing them up
leverage
the other day.
is not just that they're in a union, although that helps.
Being in a union
They
helps.
are in a union.
I was saying if artists
that
were
is
in a
not
union.
like any other union in America except for the other Hollywood guilds. So in 1947, the Taft-Hartley Act was passed. It was one of the first major reversals in the New Deal. And under Taft-Hartley, we banned what's called sectoral bargaining. That's when all the workers in a sector bargain with all the bosses in the sector. You know, if you had sectoral bargaining, every cab driver, every Uber driver, every other driver for hire could be in one union, and they could bargain with everyone who supplied service to them. It wouldn't matter if they were 1099 or W-2, a contractor or an employee. They would be bargaining for the same contract. The Hollywood guilds were carved out, and that meant that all the writers were able to be in one union that bargained against all the employers. And they won.
So they weren't competing against each other. Divide and conquer doesn't work in Hollywood.
That's right. And the fact that a bunch of them were freelancers didn't matter, because remember, one of the things that AI lets you do is convert employees who have rights into contractors who don't. It doesn't matter if you have sectoral bargaining. You know, the writers who write for Warner's aren't Warner's employees. They got a 1099 like an Uber driver, right? But they're in a union that Warner has to respect. And here's an amazing thing, because a lot of creative workers, and you know, that's my gig too. I've been a fiction writer since I was 17 years old. I've written more than 30 books. And a lot of my colleagues, they think the way that we resolve this
science fiction writer
is by creating a new copyright that bans scraping the internet, making mathematical models of the things that you recover from it, and then publishing those models as software. And I look at this and I'm baffled for two reasons, right? One is that those are super beneficial activities, right? Like scraping the internet and then interrogating the database that you find. You've just described a search engine and also the Internet Archive. And also, speaking as someone who's just had a word included in the Oxford English Dictionary, it's pretty close to what the OED does.
Is that injectification?
Injectification. They're looking at all the words, and they're a for-profit entity. They're doing without permission. It's fine. But here's the kicker, is that the Hollywood writers' strike was not a strike against Sam Altman or Dario Amodei, right? Who were they fighting? David Zaslav, the guy who runs Warner's. He's the one who wants to fire the writers. Every time there's a new entertainment industry lawsuit against AI, these copyright lawsuits that a lot of creative workers support, they drop press releases where they say, we're really angry because the AI companies took the works and trained the models without paying us. Okay, how does that help me again? Right, David Zaslav is the one who wants to fire me and replace me with a chatbot.
But David Zaslav is being mind controlled by the AI people who want his money.
Yeah, well, that's true. Also, he thinks that he can produce inferior outputs and it won't matter. This is the guy who deleted a bunch of movies that people liked because they were worth more as tax credits. He definitionally is the guy who's like, you pigs will accept whatever slop I give you and come back for seconds. So imagine you're like behind the veil of ignorance and you don't know the particulars of these two policy possibilities, sectoral bargaining versus more copyright. All you know is on this side, the copyright side, that's the side where you want a right that no other worker in America gives a damn about, but your bosses are really adamant that they need. And on this side, the sectoral bargaining side, that's the right that every worker in America would really benefit from, and your boss would be furious if you got it. Which one of those is the one you should want? If we're going to make a new policy, let's look at the ones our bosses hate and other workers love.
But you've observed that we have the highest support for unions for generations. the highest support for people to be in unions. You say the unions don't spend enough organizing their workers.
Hardly anything.
But I'm just wondering about the sectors where it might be harder for workers to unionize, like retail, because of the high turnover, or freelance digital workers.
You're describing Hollywood workers. That's why they have sectoral bargaining, right? Because that's the only kind of union that works for them. There's a joke from Eastern Canada whose punchline is, if you wanted to get there, I wouldn't start from here. It would have been better if the unions hadn't become sclerotic and hadn't sold out their workers. God, you know, the UAW for a generation had these crazy things like these two-tier contracts where workers who predated the Reaganomics era got all the benefits, and workers who came in afterwards had to pay all the dues but didn't get any of the benefits. And then they're turning around, they're like, well, why do these people not want to be members of the union where they pay for benefits but don't get them? So it would have been great if before the unions capitulated to the neoliberal revolution, they had taken a stand, and it's bad that they're here. But as you say, we have more people who want to be in unions than at any time in living memory. The unions have more cash than they've had in living memory, and there are more members of the public who support unions than at any time in living memory. If you wanted to get there, I wouldn't start from here, right? But the people who organized unions, when unions were illegal, did something much more difficult than what we're proposing to do now, right? They operated in an environment of deadly violence. And Trump thinks that when you fire so many members of the National Labor Relations Board that they can no longer form a quorum and enforce unfair labor practice actions, that's it. You fire the referees, so the game is over. But that's not how it works. When you fire the referees, the rule book goes out the window. And the National Labor Relations Act, which was the law that created the labor peace, half of it concerns itself with things your boss isn't allowed to do to you. The other half is about all the things you're not allowed to do with your boss. One guess which half of that has received the most enforcement through the decades of the National Labor Relations Board? All bets are off. We are living in a world where without labor power, there are a lot of things that are off the table. And with labor power, a lot of things become more possible. Sectoral bargaining is the demand we should be making in the legal realm, in the policy realm, and raw worker power, sit-down strikes, wildcat strikes, general strikes. That's what we should be doing outside of the policy realm. And just like with the last labor revolution, the desire to end the uncontrolled labor action will bring in the willingness to consider the things that labor needs in the rule book.
This is a really important point.
Yeah.
You've authored over 30 books.
What's one of his
your
books?
Personal relationship to AI? Do you ever incorporate it into your own creative process?
I don't have any real creative use for AI. I just have never lacked for creative ideas for my books, right? Ideas are easy, execution is hard. But I do use AI in lots of ways. I use a chatbot to check my stuff for typos. So I publish this newsletter every day, and because I don't want to get locked in by the platforms, I have to have a kind of hybrid strategy. It's called Posse, post own site, share everywhere. So I publish it and I run it through these scripts, and then I turn it into a thread on Blue Sky and a thread on Mastodon, and I publish it on Tumblr because I'm the last Tumblr user.
And if there's a typo, it's on every single one of those.
All of them. And boy, are my readers invested in letting me know about my typos. So until I fix it, I'm answering emails about it. And each one takes 15 minutes. So if I can just fix the typo before I publish, it's great. People are always like, what's your typo finding prompt? My typo finding prompt is find typos. And look, I've been telling my spell checker to go to hell for 35 years. A lot of those typos aren't typos. That's not new. As a worker choosing my automation, I can improve my quality. But if you were to take every suggestion the AI gave you, oh God, I have a collaborator that wants to write with me. We sometimes work on things using Office 365, and Microsoft has got this chatbot that makes prose suggestions. These are the worst prose suggestions I've ever seen. If you clicked yes on 10% of them, it would be like you'd had a catastrophic brain injury, right? It's just terrible. So you have to be a good writer to use it. That's my point. You have to be a good radiologist to use a radiology chatbot. You have to be a good writer to use the writer's chatbot. And so this fantasy that you fire a bunch of people and replace them with less skilled people who charge you less money to get the same output, it's ridiculous.
So in an ideal scenario, what role should AI play in the life of a creative, aside from, catching typos?
So I think broadly that the world is best when workers decide how they're going to use their tools. And I have met people who use their writing tools in ways that I think makes them a worse writer. And I've taught students lots of different ways to write. I once co-taught a workshop with Linda Berry. She taught the week before me, you know, the cartoonist.
Yes.
But it was for prose writers, and she taught them how to write by drawing, a thing I'd never have imagined of doing. And it made them really good writers. The next week, teaching the next week was a delight.
I have to tell you, when I wrote my comic book, my writing for radio got way better.
Oh, I believe you. Cross-training. It's awesome.
What's your comic book?
And
I'm
just
still waiting
like
to hear his name to
every
get his
other
book.
technique,
I know
there are going to be
Brooke
artists who
Gladstone had a
use
comic
this
book.
stuff in ways that I think is going to make them worse. And there's going to be artists who use it in ways that I think make them better. It's going to be as distinctive as the creative process of every artist. I think that AI-generated prose sucks. But I'm also willing to believe that in 10 years, I'll look back at some work of AI-generated prose and go, oh, that's pretty interesting, because the writer will have figured out a way to generate it, probably one that's as labor-intensive as anything else we do, that is producing something new. People are going to have to invent new ways of using it, but that's always been the case. And, you know, like, one of the things I collect are gazetteers, so collections of Punch magazine.
Really? The British Humor magazine.
Yeah, the little items at the beginning. One of my favorites is, an American gentleman has invented a typewriting machine that will allow you to record your thoughts faster than you can think them. No longer will we have to endure the indignity of bad tavern nibs. And I've been thinking about that a lot, because my friend Neil Stevenson just wrote this essay about writing with a fountain pen, and about why writing with a fountain pen made him a better writer. And he's got a whole kind of neurological theory in there. And you read that thing about the typewriters, and it's like, oh yeah, maybe being able to write faster than you can think causes some part of your writing to get worse. It makes other parts of your writing better, I'm sure. Like, so I am willing to say that someone out there today, tomorrow, and in years to come will find ways to use statistical inference tools to make art that is good. And it won't be by like writing a Mark Andreessen style prompt, you are a famous novelist, write me a great novel, make no mistakes, right? It's going to be through having a lot of creative discernment, having a lot of iteration, having produced a lot of bad stuff on your way to becoming good. That's how everyone who's ever made good art made it. And it will be no different with AI or any other tool.
You're against taking up either a pro-AI or anti-AI stance. AI, you say, isn't a monolith, and it's not all powerful like the tech companies might want you to think. So we should stand in the middle on AI?
No, we should stand in favor of workers and the environment. High quality services and outputs. We should say that we want our healthcare to be good and our education to be good. Remember what I was saying before about discernment? You can't evaluate an AI's output unless you're already an expert in a subject. That's useful if you're asking to spell check, but like giving a kid AI to teach the kid something the kid doesn't understand. If the kid doesn't understand it, how is it going to know when the AI is making a mistake? Right? So we should demand high quality products and services. We should demand high quality working environments. We should condemn unequivocally running roughshod over environmental planning, over the wishes of communities, using force majeure to build data centers. All of those things are compatible with continuing to have some form of statistical inference tools that use these new techniques. It's just not compatible with like betting the world economy on it. And one of the reasons it doesn't make any sense to be pro-AI or anti-AI is that AI doesn't mean anything. Like the industry just like points at anything they think will make money and say, hey, that's AI. Like last year they called it machine learning. Next year they'll call it something else. But also because like being opposed to statistical inference is weird. It's just weird. Statistical inference is fine when you're using it well. When you're using statistical inference to figure out who to stop and frisk, it's stupid and terrible, right? That doesn't make statistical inference bad. It just makes it not appropriate for all uses. It means that you have to stop thinking about this stuff as the all-powerful panacea or the all-powerful threat. And we just have to think of it as a normal technology and apply discernment and proportionality in how we fund it and where we use it, and what societal compromises and sacrifices we make in service to it.
The last question, a positive one. Places where AI is being used for good, for what we want and need.
Yeah, so one of the paradoxes of AI is that you meet programmers who are very skilled, who tell you AI is making their work better than it's ever been. And you meet workers that are very skilled and they say AI is making their code so bad, oh, I work in avionics, no one should ever get on a plane again. And the answer to this paradox is not that one person's right and the other's wrong. One of them's a centaur and one of them's a reverse centaur. And one of the most interesting centaurs I know is one of the best programmers I know. One of the most nice guys I know, a guy called Patrick Ball, founded an organization called the Human Rights Data Analysis Group, HRDAG, HRDAG.org. What they do is rigorous statistical extrapolation of the full scope of crimes during civil wars and genocides and war crimes that are then brought to The Hague, to Truth and Reconciliation, to the International Criminal Court as part of the way that we hold to account people who committed crimes during these horrible confrontations. Patrick, like I say, is one of the greatest programmers I've ever met. And he's found all kinds of ways, along with his colleagues, to use AI in the justice work they do. So, for example, they partner with Innocence Project New Orleans, and they have looked at the successful exonerations they've done, and they take the arrest reports, and they extract the linguistic correlates of an arrest that is likely to give rise to an exoneration. And then they take all of the arrest reports, and they figure out which ones share those correlates, and they start there. No one is robo-lawyering these things. And look, they're not fools. They understand that there might be a kind of exoneration they've never done before. They're going to miss this way. So it's not the only way they approach it, but it is a way that they're getting more bang for their buck. And here, bang for buck is someone who is innocent and in prison in Louisiana goes free. So that's a great use.
It seems like translation is getting better, thanks to AI.
Yeah, I would never use it for interpretation, right? I never use it to translate a book. I never use it in place of someone at a negotiation, but I have these very funny Zoom calls with my family in the former Soviet Union. I'm the youngest person in my family who speaks any Yiddish. Anyone younger than me may speak some English, the ones in Russia, but otherwise just speak Russian. And the ones who are older than me, they just speak Russian and Yiddish. And so we're all in this Zoom call. And all the old ones are speaking either Russian or Yiddish. The grandkids are shouting at them in either English or Russian or Yiddish. None of us speak Yiddish very well. There's lots of malapropisms, people misunderstand, and then we translate a block of text and paste it into the chat. It's really funny. And it's a form of communication that we wouldn't have had without this. There's a warmth in a communication that happens because of the intersection of the fact that we can see each other and that we can translate some of these concepts using machine translation. It makes it really nice. It is a bond of love across generations that is possible because of technology. And where we use technology to forge and maintain bonds of love and solidarity, that's why I fell in love with computers. That's what I've worked at the Electronic Frontier Foundation for 25 years for. It's the most important thing we do as a species, and computers can really help us with it. They can also really screw us up. And so that's why I insist that there is an alternative and that you can have friends without Mark Zuckerberg being part of the conversation. You can search the web without Google spying on you. You can have a phone that works even if Apple doesn't take 30 cents out of every dollar you spend.
AI isn't a genie that can't be put back into a bottle.
It's not a genie at all. The most important thing about a technology isn't what it does. It's who it does it for and who it does it to.
Cory, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Brooke.
Cory Doctorow is the author of The Reverse Centaur's Guide to Life After AI, How to Think About Artificial Intelligence Before It's Too Late. And that's our show. On the Media is produced by Molly Rosen, Rebecca Clark Callender, and Candace Wong, with help from Ella Walsh. Travis Mannin is our video producer. Our technical director is Jennifer Munson, with engineering from Jared Paul. Eloise Blondio is our senior
I missed his name.
Our executive producer
Gotta listen to this
is
highlight.
Hector Rogers. On the Media is produced by WNYC. Michael Owinger will be back next week. I'm Brooke Gladstone.
Michael Owinger is there. Is he the guy they were interviewing? Because Brooke Gladstone's the host.
This is CPR
Maybe
News,
he was Michael Owinger. Well, that was great. I'll be sure to tune in next week, too.
1490 AM KCFC Boulder on HD at 90.1 FM at CPR.org and on your smart speaker. Safe place,
Now here
CPR
comes
News.
the news.
Digital sponsorship is an effective way to connect with the Colorado community. Get your message in front of the thousands of people who visit CPR.org and Denverite.com every day. Learn more at CPR.org/sponsorship.
Colorado's fall ballot is crowded, but Purplish will help you make sense of it with a game show, the Great Colorado Ballot-O-Rama. I'm Bente Berkland from CPR News. Join us in person with journalists from the Colorado Capital News Alliance to unpack statewide measures, who's behind them, and what they could mean for Colorado. Monday, August 24th in downtown Denver. Tickets at cpr.org/events.
With support from the Denver Foundation.
This is the TED Radio Hour. Each week, groundbreaking TED Talks.
Our job now is to dream big.
Delivered at TED conferences
To bring about the future we want to see.
around the world.
To understand who we are.
From those talks, we bring you speakers and ideas that will surprise you,
You just don't know what you're going to find.
challenge you,
We truly have to ask ourselves, like, why is it noteworthy?
and even change you. I literally feel like I'm a different person. Yes. Do you feel that way? Ideas worth spreading. From TED and NPR, I'm Manoush Zamarodi. Coming up.
It can be scary to make that your priority and your deepest value, that you be a person who loves recklessly and who allows people to love her.
On the show today, best-selling author Anne Lamott. First, this news.
As many developing countries face cuts to aid budgets, how can they fund climate adaptation and resilience projects? This is Climate Watch from the BBC.
Start warnings today.
The Earth is warming.
More hurricanes likely, more intense flooding.
Dramatically worse than previously predicted.
Why can't we just stop emitting carbon altogether?
Climate crisis that we must not ignore.
I'm Caroline Steele, and this week we're in the Gambia, one of Africa's most climate vulnerable nations. The BBC's Nkechi Obona spoke to Mayatal Hushaimi, Executive Director of the Great Institute.
These climate changes are affecting the livelihoods of us Gambians, particularly our farmers, because as the sea level is rising, it's bringing in salt water. And what that salt water does is it causes agricultural farms, particularly rice farms, to be encroached with salt. And therefore, these seedlings are not able to adapt to that change. And so it reduces the harvesting that we were once able to have. And unfortunately, today, we are importing more than we are producing. Also, not just with agriculture, but also with oysters and fisheries. We're seeing how these species are trying to adapt, but unfortunately are not able to adapt to this changing environment.
I covered climate issues in the Gambia, and I went to the ocean front, the beach front, and I was shown where the water used to be and where it is now. But I also saw tree planting activities were happening. Is that not a mitigation effort that is helping the issues that cities like Banjul are facing when it comes to rising sea level?
Restoration activities are happening along the Gambia River as well as the Atlantic side of the coastline. And we are so grateful for our community-based organizations as well as our village local people that are actually taking the lead in restoration activities. And we have seen some regrowth, especially in the central and southern part of the Tambi wetlands. We are doing the science, but we're also working with the communities that are doing the restoration activities so we can see this positive change.
Many donor countries are actually cutting down their budgets for aid and climate financing. Now, how concerned are you about the future of climate adaptation efforts or even mitigation efforts?
I once used to be very concerned when finance funding was being cut, but I'm so optimistic now because I see us doing the work without receiving the financing. And although we do need it, I will never say we don't need it, but sometimes when you don't have something that you need, it forces you to rethink and strategize how you can still do the work and make sure that you have the impact. Gambia is such a small country, it's such a pilot country.
Oh, this is good though.
Where we can test all these things. And it's a group of us that are working together to make sure that the impact is all across the board.
I heard this one earlier.
Let's talk
Great
about the
Institute.
work at GREAT Institute. That's Great Institute.
Great Institute. Sounds awesome.
What are you focused on and what do you hope to achieve?
The Great Institute, it stands for Gaining Research Experience in Africa for Tomorrow. It's the first aquatic and coastal research institute in the Gambia, and our goal is mainly to train the next generation of environmental stewards, connecting them to decision makers and using science-based evidence to support some of the new policies that will come. And we just want to inspire communities and people to understand and protect the ecosystem.
I know this fellow always has something to say.
And that was
Maya
Climate
Tal
Watch
Husseini.
from
That was
the
good.
BBC.
I know this fellow always has something
There's
to say.
no other show like it.
He's not the one to tell you night from day. And now he's in your town, there's going to be a way.
Colorado Matters is
Just
a
go
daily
through
radio
him
show
to
and
get out
podcast
of the gray.
showcasing people, places,
In these days we're all astray. Amazing. In these nights when all the graves are raised. Who's to say it's all a play? We're gazing worlds away as we fly through the waves. I like this girl, she wants me to turn it in. She asked me where all of my life has been. We never met, just felt that look and then I wanted to turn out all that lies within. In these days we're all astray. Amazing. In these nights when all the graves are raised. Who's to say it's all a play? We're gazing worlds away as we fly through the waves.
Multiple tries over the course of nearly 2 decades, tangled up in politics and power.
There's people during each try who support statehood, and people who are opposed to it, and people who aren't included at all.
Learn about how Colorado has always been a place of competing ideas. That's on a new episode of CPR's politics podcast, Purplish, wherever you listen.
I resent the name Purplish.
It's the
Well,
TED
blue
Radio
state.
Hour from NPR.
But we're
I'm
largely
Manoush
independent.
In Northern
Like everybody.
California in the 50s and
America
early
now.
60s, all fourth graders had to write their first research paper. And you have a whole semester to do it. One semester was about Sacramento, our capital, and one semester was about birds.
This is best-selling author Anne Lamott.
So my older brother, who did not like school and was very bitter about any homework he was asked to do, had not started it. He'd had the whole semester and it was due that Monday. So we were out at this one-room cabin we had on the coast, and my dad was trying to help him, and they had photos of birds, they had the National Geographic, they had Roger Tory Peterson and Audubon, but my brother was crying because it was just such a daunting project. And my dad sat down next to him and put his arm around him and said, "Just take it bird by bird, buddy."
Even though Anne was just 9 years old at the time, her father's words stuck with her.
That was the best writing advice I've ever heard, that you study about chickadees and then you write about them for a little bit in your own voice. Then you illustrate them. Then you think about great blue herons and you read what Audubon has to say, and then you put it in your own words.
And you've really turned that into a metaphor for starting so many things in our lives.
I'm glad we got a
Everything.
highlight of that.
I mean, the American way is that you should always know what you're doing. You've made a decision and you should stick with it. But the fact is that no writer knows what they're doing until they've done it. The way that you get to the miracle of writing is bird by bird.
If you know Anne Lamott, you've heard this story before. If you don't, it's a great introduction to her, because that phrase, bird by bird, is also the title of one of her best-known books. Anne is the author of more than 20 books, mostly filled with her own memories of family,
Check out my
single
book,
parenting,
The Little Book of Judas
addiction,
by Andrew Harris.
faith, and forgiveness.
See you next time.
For over 40 years, her work has touched a nerve with so many people who turn to her for wisdom and advice on how to write, but also just how to live. And so today on the show, an hour with Anne Lamott. We spoke in 2024 as she marked her 70th birthday, and this conversation remains one of my favorites. You'll hear lessons from her life and ideas from her latest essay collection, which is called Somehow, Thoughts on Love. But first, we need to go back to Bird by Bird, a bestseller that came out about 30 years ago.